Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel. Time for a gimmick record video, I guess. So I've always wanted, or when I've seen them go up for sale, I've always thought the idea of a liquid-filled or item-filled record would be kind of cool. So I remember, oh, what have I seen over the years? There's been multiple blood-filled vinyls, which is usually just a red liquid. I'm trying to think of the first one that I saw. I believe Slayer did one at one point. I know Sleep had a version of Dope Smoker that had a pot leaf embedded in it. I thought that was kind of cool. And those things usually they're done in very small batches, and they always go through the roof in value. And I always thought it would be kind of a cool thing to have one. And I got a chance to buy a couple different filled records recently. And I picked them up. But again, it's one of those things I've always wanted. And I knew if I didn't grab them, I would regret it later. So I went ahead and grabbed them. So these first two I recently purchased. The third one I've had for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. It's slightly different, but we'll get to that. So the first one, I remember when this was announced being on sale, I got the email from Newberry Comics. And by the time I went to the website, they already sold out, which is also the case for the second one I'm going to show here. This one isn't as limited, though. A lot of times when you see these liquid-filled records, they may do 30, 40, 50 of them. This one, they actually did 250 of them. But for an artist and for an album as popular as this is, that's still a very small amount. So this is the Mötley Crüe Shout at the Devil that Newberry Comics did. They did a limited edition of 250 of them. And it's they call it blood-filled vinyl. Now, one of the other things with the filled records is sometimes, especially if you don't store them in an air-conditioned room, and you don't move them from time to time, the liquid will dry out, and that was real common with the Slayer ones. I've got the Slayer soundtrack to the Apocalypse box set, which is the ammo can, and that came with a CD in a liquid-filled sleeve. And my copy is the only one that I've seen in probably a decade where the liquid is still liquid. I see them all the time. Every time I see them for sale, it's dried up. So anyway, this was just recent. I want to say this came out last year, 2 years ago, 2022. But I do remember trying to grab this. So when I was at a local shop, for a buddy shop, for a signing event that I kind of helped set up a little bit, and he had these. I talked to him on the side. He made me a really good deal. Now, one thing I don't like about the Mötley Crüe reissues is they do them to look worn. So I don't know how well you can see that, but they build in the ring wear and the wear on the record. This is something they started doing with the box set a number of years ago. And I never liked. I've got originals of all these, so I've never bought any of those. But it's just something stupid. And then you've got the really nice gatefold. Here is the inner sleeve that it was in. Well, let's get to the record. So here is the liquid-filled Mötley Crüe Shout at the Devil. And this thing has been cleaned, but it's impossible to keep clean. I don't know if you can see it. There's little pieces of they used rubber cement to seal it. And it doesn't matter how I store it, the little pieces of rubber cement keep coming loose. But there it is. You can kind of see it. And there are instructions. Let me see if I have the instructions here. It did come with instructions. I can't find them. Oops. They're somewhere. Maybe I set them on the desk somewhere. But it did come with instructions that basically said how to store it. It says it is an audiophile pressing. I doubt it. I haven't played it. I'm not interested. Number one, like I said, even though I cleaned it with a brush, I can still see little pieces of the rubber cement that they used between the two records on the record. And I mean, I can feel I can feel it on the record itself. But what they did basically is they took two single-sided records. They filled them. You can see where they filled it at the end. So they put about an inch of rubber cement all the way around it. They filled the liquid right here, and then they filled this area in again with some kind of, and it just feels like rubber cement or hot glue gun glue is what it feels like. But it's super thick. It's a little over a 1/4 inch thick, so it's not something that I would want to throw on my turntable, not just because of what may or may not be in the grooves, but because the record would sit so high on my turntable, it would throw off the VTA, and it would just probably sound like, I mean, I would basically have to completely reconfigure my turntable and raise the tone arm to get the VTA correct so that it would even sound halfway decent, which isn't the point of these. You know, and the funny thing is, like I said, I've always wanted one of these, and now that I have one, I get the gimmick of it, and I don't really care, and I actually already sold this to a buddy who was looking for this. So, you know, it was one of those things where I'm glad I bought it, you know, just because I've always wanted one. And now that I've had one and realized how kind of goofy it is, I just want to get rid of it. I'm not the kind of collector. Yes, if it's a band I love, I want a copy of every one of their records, but I'm not the guy that needs every different version of every record. So while I did think this was cool, and I'm glad I bought it, it did kind of prove to me why I don't really want stuff like this in my collection. So still pretty interesting though. Next up, this one I got for super cheap. I got this for less than they went for. Actually, you might be able to see the price tag on here. I paid $35 for this. I think these were like 65 or 70 bucks when they came out, if I remember correctly. But this is the Savage Master, Those Who Hunt at Night, which is their most recent album, 2023. Wow, 2021. Maybe there was an album after this. I don't remember. I thought they had an album that was newer than that. Doesn't matter. I believe this is their most recent album. So they did a limited pressing as well, and I got the email for this one. And once again, by the time I got the email, and I went to the website within maybe 10 minutes of getting the email, and by that time again they were already sold out. Now they did 30 liquid filled and 30 sand filled, and this one is one of the sand filled pressings. So there's the front cover. Let's go ahead and pull out the. Does this one have the... Yeah, the original inner sleeve is there. Okay. And when I grabbed this one, I thought this one was liquid filled too. It was kind of dark. And I would have grabbed it either way. Like I said, just the kind of the cool gimmick of it. But it almost looks like it's liquid filled as well. Now this one is done a little bit better than the Mötley Crüe, I think. Whereas this one doesn't feel like rubber cement. It's hard. It's some kind of hard glue or epoxy that was put in there that dried hard. And they kind of painted it black around the edge to hide the difference. And then sand filled it. So this one looks pretty cool. I did actually clean this one up and play it. And it's kind of loud at the beginning, but once you get about I don't know, 30 or 40 seconds into the first song, it just sounds like a normal pressing of this. But of course, they did the same thing, and it's got the same issue. This one's a little bit thinner. This one looks like it's less than 1/4 of an inch. But it's still, I wouldn't recommend playing this on your turntable with a good needle where there's a chance of damaging it, or it just throwing off the VTA and sounding like shit. But still, again, just kind of a cool gimmick. Again, I bought these two the same night. I probably wouldn't buy one of these liquid-filled things again unless I just ran across it for a really good deal and I was going to take it to the record show or something. Who knows? Still, kind of a cool idea. And as a band, and they did this themselves. Savage Master through their Bandcamp. That's how these were made available to the public. So this was direct from the band. And I think it's cool that Savage Master would do something like that. They've always done some cool vinyl stuff, and they're always, I've seen them a bunch of times live. They're always really cool. They like to interact with the fans after their shows. I've never been to a show where they didn't come out after they played and spend a good half hour to an hour just talking to everybody and hanging out. So I think it is cool that bands do stuff like this, or do stuff like this. That said, not really for me. And then last but not least, this one is really cool. So Tourniquet, back in, I think this was 2015 or 16 when this happened. But so Ted Kirkpatrick, the late Ted Kirkpatrick, he died last year, unfortunately, did I believe it was a Kickstarter. It was a crowd-funded thing, though, and he did a few crowd-funded albums, and he always did some really cool, like signed pressings with a variant that was really limited, and that's what this was. This one was limited to 100, and we didn't really know what we were going to get when we ordered them. So it basically just said that this will be a special limited edition variant that will be limited to 100, and just kind of left it at that. He did mention that there would be, how did he call it? It would be multicolored, meaning that every record would be a different color, and that he did more than 100 in the different colors. But he said that this first 100 would be something special, and it really was. So this is Pathogenic Ocular Dissonance, which I believe is the third record from Tourniquet. If you're not familiar with Tourniquet, Tourniquet was a Christian thrash band. They were one of the bands kind of like Deliverance, who actually crossed over into the mainstream. Tourniquet, I wasn't even into Christian metal at the time. I didn't even know they were a Christian metal band, and I had one of their albums just as a thrash fan. But this was a fantastic record. It's one of my favorites from the band. They didn't do a very good job with the artwork. The artwork on the cover is just muddied and looks terrible. But he hand numbered them all. So this is number 16 out of 100. And they called this blown out label. A blown out label pressing. Again, they didn't tell us what we were going to get, so I actually thought that something was wrong with mine, because you can kind of feel the label in a couple of spots, and actually I thought that there was an error, and I remember emailing them, and them emailing me back and saying this is the way it was supposed to be. But so it's this blue and green. And it's hard to see, but that's actually little pieces of the label blown out into the record. And the reason I thought it was a mistake was because when you get around the center right here, you can actually feel the label right there, the torn pieces. And it actually caused the main label not to correctly seat. So I thought it was, and right there is another great spot where it looks like a piece of label just got torn off and got stuck to the top of the record. The record plays great, though. It doesn't affect the playing of the record. It's just funny. This is the way it was supposed to be, and I thought it was an error, so I emailed them saying something was wrong with my record, which in hindsight is stupid. But a very cool variant, and these go... The last one of these that sold was like 2 or 3 years ago. There's a lot of people that want these, and it sold for like $250, $275, something like that. But it was very cool. And again, that was the first record. This is album 2, and this one looks completely different. So this one is also a part of that, and it's really weird because on this side you can't really see the label, but on this side you can. But it's the back side, the white side of the label, which is really weird. You can only see the blue was so dark it kind of covered up. You can only see around the edges that it's the actual pieces of label where it's clear. So it's kind of an interesting idea where the gimmick kind of really worked on this one, where I think it was really cool. It just doesn't work on the... And like I said, a lot of it has to do with... This is still a normal record. This still plays beautifully. It's still a great sounding record. Whereas those... it's a cool gimmick. If you're that kind of collector that collects for, I guess, the value... And I'm not saying I don't. I like that some of my records are worth $300, $400, $500, $1,000. But those are all records that I can still play and enjoy and are useful. Whereas these would... it's cool to have them, but they would just sit on my shelf forever and never get played. Like I said, I would never play that Mötley Crüe, even though that's one of my all-time favorite records. Not just because it's so thick, but also because it doesn't seem to matter how I clean it. I'm never going to get all that rubber cement off of there. And I wouldn't put it through my ultrasonic because my ultrasonic heats up, and I would be afraid that even if it softens up that rubber cement a little bit, it could cause it to leak and basically destroy the record. So I just thought it would be cool to show these and talk about them. Like I said, a buddy of mine bought the Mötley Crüe off of me, so I'm gonna get that packaged up and mailed out to him later today, and just wanted to kind of share this there. I thought it was something interesting to talk about. Let me know what you guys think, if you have any of the blood filled or the liquid filled records, and what your thoughts on them are. I have, like I said, I've seen them before, and I've always wanted one. There was a country artist. I don't remember what his name was. He was a good artist, not a great artist, but he did some beer filled ones that I thought was pretty cool, and I tried to order, and again, I didn't get any. Sleep. The Sleep one is kind of like this, where there's a pot leaf embedded in it, but it's still a playable record, and something like that would be cool. Yeah, that's it, guys. I just wanted to share that, see what you guys think. I hope everybody's doing good. Take care, VC. I'll talk to you soon. Later.